Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Washington today. He was here yesterday. Today, he was making his case to congressional leaders for more aid to Ukraine before the Christmas recess. Now, this comes as Senate Democrats absolutely refuse to address the crisis at our southern border, meaning the foreign aid stalemate will likely extend into January. Joining me now by phone with the latest on this, as well as the National Defense Authorization Act, is Senator Mike Lee from Utah. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Judiciary Committee and the Senate Budget Committee. Senator Lee, welcome back to the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
So what's the latest on the meeting with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy? Any movement there? Did he convince Democrats to support border security?
Not exactly. Look, he's become such a frequent flyer in Senate circles, it almost feels some days like Volodymyr Zelenskyy has become the 101st U.S. Senator. In any event, I was tempted to ask him the whole time, what are you going to do to protect American border security, given all that we're doing to protect your border? Didn't ask that, nor did anybody else. Fact of the matter is, this four-headed monster that they've been trying to put together, it's becoming clearer by the minute that it's not going to happen, certainly not in this calendar year. I doubt very much whether it can happen even next year, but it's certainly not going to happen between now and the end of this calendar year, nor should it, in my view. Look, we've already given $113 billion to Ukraine since this war started a little over a year and a half ago. That's a lot of money. There are people in the United States who do not make $113 billion in an entire year. And in addition to that, we've given more than any other country on planet Earth. In fact, I believe we've given more than every other country on planet Earth combined, including the countries who are our NATO allies, who are screaming most loudly, telling us that we've got to spend more in Ukraine. I find this unacceptable, especially unless or until such time as all of those NATO allies are spending the same percentage of their GDP that they've committed to spend through NATO and have spent as much or more combined than we have. They certainly have no right whatsoever to tell us what we've got to do, and I find it offensive.
Senator, part of this package was support for Israel, and that came over from the House. The Senate has refused to move it forward. I think Republicans have gone to the floor 4 times to try to put this, to tee this up. Democrats refusing to help Israel.
Yep, that's right. The House of Representatives has passed a measure that would provide aid to Israel. This little over $14 billion of much needed aid to Israel that I think every Republican in the Senate supports. In fact, that legislation could be signed and become law tonight. It could happen tonight, but for the opposition of 51 Democrats, all 51 Democrats and President Biden. If they would just relent and allow us to fund the effort in Israel, that could be behind us. That is, moreover, a bill in which the spending is offset, and so it doesn't add to our national debt and deficit, which is probably the way we ought to be doing these things. And yet the Democrats don't want to do it. They won't let us fund anything unless we'll fund everything, including the more than $61 billion that they want to send to Ukraine. By the way, Tony, that includes an astonishing $12 billion that just goes to pay all of the civil servants in the Ukrainian government. We're covering their entire payroll, apparently, for an entire year, in addition to providing weapons support, humanitarian aid, and all kinds of other things. I don't get it. This makes no sense.
No.
And why is it that we're fetishizing Ukrainian security while ignoring our own border security? That's appalling.
So just to be very clear, Senator, no movement from the Democrats on border security in order to get this aid package through?
No. They're afraid even of their own shadow. They're afraid even of their own lip service to border security. They won't even commit to making some overt gesture that we probably wouldn't even accept as a sufficient offering to justify this kind of a move. They won't even do that because they're so beholden to their far-left progressive base that basically wants open borders. And for reasons that astound me, wants to continue subjecting men and particularly women and children to the exploitative abuse that they suffer at the hands of these drug cartels, who make billions of dollars every few weeks just moving human trafficked individuals into our border.
Wow.
This is disgusting. It's appalling. And I really don't understand how their voters are putting up with it.
Senator, very quickly, another question for you. The National Defense Authorization Act, you stood with Senator Tuberville in trying to get taxpayers out of the abortion facilitating a business. That was a provision put into the National Defense Authorization Act that took care of that. That's been taken out. What is the future of the NDAA this week?
Look, the NDAA passes every year. It passes every year, even when it shouldn't pass every year, frankly, because a few senators have gotten together and said we must pass an NDAA every year, and we must do so because we said we must do so. As a result of the fact that people have just decided in the Senate that it has to pass every single year, members of the Senate have gotten way too permissive in what goes in there and what doesn't go in there. There are things that are not in there that should be there, like those hard-fought victories obtained in the House of Representatives, restricting the use of DOD funds for abortion travel, for example. Not in there. They took that out. It took away all these major victories in the House and capitulated to the Senate side of it. And then they also added this provision extending through the National Defense Authorization Act, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, all based on an unwillingness on the part of sort of the military-industrial complex to accept the fact that before searching for a U.S. citizen's private communications stored on the 702 database, they should have to get a search warrant.
Right.
They were unwilling to face the music on that. So what did they do? Well, they extended it by a few months through the NDAA. That's disgraceful.
Well, speaking of the music, there's the music playing, means our time is up. Senator Mike Lee, thanks so much for joining us today.